Well, hello. Today we're going to talk a little bit about law, and in being in law enforcement, it's kind of what I do. It seems like everywhere we turn, there are laws or rules to follow. Today, most human beings live in a civilized society that are based on the concept of what we call the rule of law. This means that everyone in the society is equal under the eyes of the law, and the same rules and consequences apply on an individual irrespective of his social class or position. Uh, Basically, regardless of his social class or position. There are both laws as well as rules that are meant to be followed by people so as to ensure smooth functioning of day to day affairs, and anyone breaking these rules and laws are dealt with accordingly. Both rules and laws help to maintain peace and order in a society, but rules are unwritten, whereas laws are written and codified. Laws give legal sanctity to rules and carry punishment upon their violation, which is not the case with rules. Uh, there are enforcement authorities in the forms of police and judiciary for the laws, whereas rules are followed and adhered to basically by the people themselves. Laws are made inside the legislature by enacted representatives, whereas rules evolve out of tradition and/or basically customs of society. Those violating rules are looked down upon by the society, but violations of laws entail punishment by the judiciary system. When I stated before that rules are everywhere, uh, if you like movies, let's think about the movie Shrek, if some of you have seen it. Now, in the movie Shrek, Shrek and Donkey decide that they're going to go to Lord Farquhar's kingdom, kingdom called Duloc, to reclaim Shrek's swamp. Now, before they can even enter, they are met by a box with the rules of the city. Now, the rules of the city are pretty simple. It says, "Welcome to Duloc, such a perfect town. Here we have some rules that we're going to lay them down. Don't make waves, stay in line, and we'll get along just fine. Duloc is a perfect place." Now, that seems like pretty simple rules to follow. But from movies to sports, board games, to just life in general, rules and laws are always there. Now, as a law enforcement officer, I have a degree in criminal justice and also a degree in history, and I've had to study the creation and adaptation of the rules of law. One of the things we're going to talk about today is the Code of Hammurabi, which is one of the earliest and most complete written legal codes, and was also proclaimed by the Babylonian king Hammurabi, who reigned from 1792 to 1750 BC. Now, Hammurabi was the sixth king in the Babylonian dynasty, which ruled in central Mesopotamia, which today is present day Iraq, from 1894 to 1595 BC. Now, to give you this timeline, this is roughly 300 years before Moses. Now, Hammurabi's Code is one of the most famous examples of the ancient precept of law, basically of the law of retribution, a form of retaliatory justice commonly associated with the saying, "an eye for an eye." Now, under this system, if a man broke the bone of one of his equals, then one of his bones would be broken in return. Capital crimes, meanwhile, were often met with their own unique and grisly death penalty. The laws varied according to social class and gender. Under the Hammurabi law codes, citizens were governed as per their class and their hierarchy in society. Now, This was mainly due to the fact that in ancient Mesopotamian society, it was a mix of natives, tribes, slaves, foreigners, all coming from other religions and all kind of amalgamated into one society, therefore forcing the state to create laws for each segment. Now, as an example of social class, if a man knocks the teeth out of his equal, then his teeth got knocked out. Committing the same crime against a member of a lower class was punished merely by a fine. The code also listed different punishment for men and women with regard to marital infidelity. Men were allowed to have extramarital relationships with maidservants, slaves, by philandering women, prostitutes. Often, women, though, if this happened, they were bound and tossed into the Euphrates River along with their person they were caught with. Now, Hammurabi's code took brutal approaches to justice, but the severity of criminal penalties often depended on both the identity of the lawmaker and the victim. Now, while notorious for its catalog of barbaric punishments, Hammurabi's code also set a valuable legal precedent which we actually look at today, and it's actually survived until today. And that is the idea in early legal documents of innocent until proven guilty. In fact, the code places the burden of proof on the accuser in extreme fashion when it says, if anyone brings an accusation of any crime before the elders and does not prove what he is charged, he shall, if it be a capital offense, be put to death. Now, a lot of these laws were set up for contracts, business, to help, like most things, to help the elite, the higher class in society. They had privilege. That's just the way it's been through history. The privileged have always had a little bit better over the lower class. So laws basically are to govern mankind. They were in place, to keep us in control. But let's go back, when I said earlier, let's go back to talk about Moses. Now, the Exodus probably occurred somewhere around 1446 BC. Exodus 19:1 tells us the Israelites came to Sinai exactly 3 months after leaving Egypt. It wasn't long after their arrival that Moses received the Ten Commandments. So it is likely that the Ten Commandments were given somewhere around 1446 or 1445 BC. These were the laws that God passed down. And we talk about it, in some similarities, the laws are the same when we consider the Hammurabi Code was probably inspired. He didn't come up with this stuff off of his head, so some of it was probably inspired. And Moses was actually a studier, because being in Egypt when he was, of the laws. So, some of them carried over.